Franklin County Democratic Party sponsored program. We have, I'm here, Nancy and Betty Fraley, and we have coming up first a recording that Betty made, an interview with Phil Bredesen this morning early. Betty got here early.
Too early.
Too early, yeah. Because he couldn't call in at the time we needed him to, so she got here early, and they got on the phone. And then, after we play that interview, Carl Dean is going to be calling in. So y'all listen. They'll talk about issues that if you haven't voted, you're going to be voting on. I hope you will vote. That's so important. It's not important. It's essential. So, Al, I guess we're ready to play that Phil Bredesen and Betty Fraley interview.
All right, here we go.
I'm, of course, interested in a lot of things as a senior citizen. I'm interested in the prescription drug thing, and I noticed you have a new ad out on that. Of course, you know, Social Security and Medicare are interests of mine, but I would like for you to elaborate on the prescription drug plan for the people of Franklin County.
Yeah, I'd love to. One of the things I found when I was traveling around the state and talking to people is just sort of how much concern there was about just the price of prescription drugs. People that didn't have insurance, people that had insurance with high deductibles, and the price has been going up dramatically, and it's gotten to be a real problem for a lot of people. And when I sat down to kind of think about it and what you might do, I realized and did some research and found that, these same drugs are being sold in other countries, like in Western Europe, for a fraction of what they're being sold here in the United States. I looked at one drug, for example, like a drug called Crestor, which is a drug you use for cholesterol control. There's probably you probably have a lot of listeners who take that, and it averages about $25 a month in France and Germany and the UK and countries like that. In this country, if you go into the drugstore back then, it was about $214 a month. So it's almost 8 or 9 times as much as it is there. And again, this is not an imitation drug or something. This is the same drug made by the same company and probably in the same plant. And so my idea was to say, look, there's an idea in business called most favored nations. And what that means is that if I've got a contract with somebody to buy some service, I agree what I might pay him for that product, say. But then I also say, if you sell it to somebody else less expensively, I get that better price because I'm a big customer of yours.
Yes.
I think we could apply that same notion to drugs and just start forcing these pharmaceutical companies to be selling them to Medicare and Medicaid and, ultimately to citizens at prices that are just a lot more reasonable. I think what's happening is they're making all their profits in the United States and then selling these drugs at, very low prices in other places. And I don't think that's right. I think we're the biggest purchaser of these drugs in the world. We should be getting the best price.
Well, I just didn't realize how much it takes to maintain as a senior citizen. And that is
right.
That's such an important thing that you're going to do. And listen, just please get that done.
Well, it's it's not going to be easy. The drug lobbyists are very powerful in Washington, as you probably know, and I'm running against somebody who's very tight with them. But I just think it's worth doing. I mean, there's just a lot of money to be saved for the taxpayers, a lot of money to be saved for individual citizens that way. It just seems fair that we should be, as I say, we're the biggest purchaser. We should be getting the best prices.
Well, I sure hope that can come to pass. And, of course, we want you to protect Social Security and Medicare. I'm not hearing good things.
I've come to realize just how important these things are to people. I'm there.
Well, I'm just not hearing good things from the other party about Medicare and Social Security, and I sure hope that can be stopped.
Yeah, it's it's particularly galling to me because we just had this big tax cut that I'm glad a lot of middle class people got tax cuts, but the bulk of it to the wealthy, and it's made a further problem with the deficit, another $1.5 trillion, and to sort of say and okay, we need to solve that on the backs of people who are on Medicare or Social Security is just that's just crazy. They're different. Social Security is actually in reasonable shape. At some point it's going to have to be adjusted, but there's still a lot of money in that trust fund, and I think people should not worry about that. Medicare is probably the bigger issue, and frankly, this thing that I was talking about with drug prices could actually go a long way toward dealing with the issues in Medicare.
Oh, yes.
And certainly, as I'd much rather be telling this drug I'm talking about is actually made by a foreign company. It's made by a company that's headquartered in the UK and Sweden. But I'd sure rather tell a foreign company that we'd like to cut down on their profits a little bit before I tell an American person on Medicare that they need to give something up.
That's right. And see, Medicare would not suffer. I mean, they would not have to spend nearly as much if we could cut down on prescription drug costs.
Yeah, it's a significant part of it, and there's people who've got Medicare Part D, which is the drug part of it, and there's also a lot of drugs that are prescribed in hospitals, for example, and those things, and all of those are really are really important, and they're very expensive.
And anything else you'd like to say to the people of Franklin County?
I've always enjoyed my relationship with you, and obviously with George when he was alive, and
you did so much for Franklin County, and we are so appreciative.
Yeah. I've always loved it down there, and I tried to get down there as governor. It's 95 counties. You can't get there always as many times as you'd want, but
you came here pretty
I
often,
always enjoyed
Governor.
being there.
You came here pretty often. We were so appreciative that you could.
Well, I knew I'd get in trouble with you if I didn't show up.
That's right. That's right. But I remember very well when we started the project on the square. I was there, and Beth Roten said, "Could you get me an audience with the governor?" So I introduced you. We stepped out on the sidewalk, and the square is absolutely beautiful. And
good. Well,
you know that they're still getting the money from the sales tax. We are still getting to keep the sales tax money until 2022, and I understand it's been lengthened. They have extended it. So all because of you and Beth Roten and Yvonne Stewart wrote the grant, and George, and that's just one thing that you did. The pre-K classes, every school in this county has 2 pre-K classes because of you and George.
Oh, that is great. I'm glad to hear that.
Of course, education is one of my...
Those are so, they're so useful to parents. I don't think any parent should be forced to put a child in pre-K, but it sure is great to have that option for them. And I know a lot of people use it. When our Andrea's and my son was very young, he was in a pre-K class, and it was great for him.
Oh, yes. I didn't have the privilege of going to kindergarten, and you probably didn't either.
No, I didn't.
My grandchildren have, and they certainly have profited from it.
Yeah, good. Well, listen, I'm obviously involved in this political race right now, and it's a clear choice between 2 very different people and different visions, and I'm hoping I've always really liked the people down there, and I remember campaigning door to door down there, and I hope people will trust me to go up to Washington and work in their best interest. I think it's really important to not go up there and be a party supporter or opponent to the president or anything else. You got to just keep in mind what the people of Tennessee need, the people of Franklin County need, and that's what I've always tried to do. And I hope people will trust me to do it again. Well,
that's what I tell everybody. When George served under you, Governor, you could not tell the difference between a Democrat and Republican. Everybody worked together, and just look how much you accomplished working together.
Yep.
That's what happens when you work together. So I know that you are not partisan, and I'm just so glad that you can do that kind of thing. A real leader does that. And that's what we need.
I've always thought that, I always thought leadership was about trying to find common ground. People are going to have different opinions of things. You look for that common ground, and I just don't like leaders who try to divide people and, put everybody in tribes. And if you're not in my tribe, you're the bad guy. And that's just not what I think this country's about.
And it's not working.
Sorry, we've gone so far down that road.
It is not working. It doesn't work.
Agreed.
Well, I'm sure that you want you want me to deliver all the votes in Franklin County for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, that would be nice. But I realize that I may lose a few, but I hope people down there can come through for me, as I say, and trust me in this, and I promise to do a good job for y'all.
I know you would, because I watched you for 8 years as governor, and I'm appalled that you were supposed to have spent so much money. I never did get to go to the mole hole. I've never even seen the inside of it because it wasn't finished when George was there.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, if Andrea did that stuff and actually raised the money privately for it. So
I know that.
Public money, but that doesn't, that stuff doesn't matter when you're doing these negative ads, I guess. But I'm real pleased with it, and to be honest, some of the people who are yelled at it the most are the ones who are standing down there now with a glass of wine in one hand and a shrimp in the other. So,
I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that's true, and I would like to see it sometime.
Well, we'll see if we can't work that out. Maybe if I can get to be senator, then I can call up and try to make that happen.
Well, I hope to come to see you in Washington when you get to be senator.
Well, I'd love to do it. It's I'm working on it and traveling around. I got 12 days of campaigning left, and then we'll find out how it all turned out. But I appreciate your chance to talk with the people of Franklin County on your show, and look forward to doing it many more times in the future.
Okay, thank you so much for doing this.
Great, nice talking to you, baby.
Nice to talk to you. Good luck.
I just want to urge you to vote for Phil Bredesen. Phil Bredesen did so much for Franklin County when he was governor. He is a real leader. He is not partisan. I've seen him lead and not be able to tell the difference between Democrats and Republicans, and that's the reason they got so much done. Nancy, do you have...
Yeah, just a couple of minutes. If you haven't voted, I printed off a copy of the ballot this morning, and I wanted to call this to your attention. If you haven't decided who you're going to vote for, or if you're going to vote, we hope by the time this program is over this morning that you'll go in and vote for, just go down the line, governor, the second name on the ballot. There's a whole string of them there, actually. The second name is Carl Dean for governor. You cannot go wrong with Carl Dean, and he's going to call in here in a few minutes. And then flip over to United States Senate, Phil Bredesen. You just heard from him. Second name on the ballot. Go on down, United States House of Representatives, second name on the ballot. Mariah Phillips, school teacher, mom of 5, Murfreesboro, has just worked her heart out, and she'll work for you if we send her to Washington. Next name is Tennessee House of Representatives, second name on the ballot. Sharon Lane Adams. Sharon is from a family of school teachers. Her parents, her brother, she's a school teacher. Her husband was a band leader. Ordinary, middle-class citizen like most of us. We need to send Sharon to Nashville to work with John Ray Clemens, who was here, who called in a couple of weeks ago, and other Democrats to, among other things, get Medicaid extended so everybody can have health insurance. That is the bona fide real thing to do. These things that you're hearing now from the other side about, we're for covering pre-existing conditions. Yes, that's true. You can say that. I could walk into Russell Barnett's place down here on the highway and said, "Hey, you got a real expensive Cadillac I could buy? Is it available to me?" Yeah, it's available. But guess what? I got to plunk down some money. And of course, they're saying this. They're going to cover pre-existing conditions, but they don't tell you that the plans that they'll come up with and the plans that they're now going to allow the state give the state more room to put out their own plans that will not cover all the essential medical problems like the real thing the Affordable Care Act does. So go with the Democrats. I tell you one reason. I've written a couple down here while Betty and Phil Bredesen were speaking. You know, one reason, this is one reason, there are others, that I'm going to vote for Democrats, I'm going to vote for all Democrats, is when I was a little girl in Bible school and Sunday school at then Marble Place Methodist Church, I remember the posters they put on the wall in our little classrooms. One of them was a man beaten up, bruised and bloodied, laying alongside the road, and this was the parable of the Good Samaritan, is what it represented. And of course, those of you, many of you know what happened. He had been beaten up and robbed, lying there on the road. A priest passed by and went on the other side. A Levite passed by, just kept going. A hated Samaritan passed by, picked him up, cleaned him up, took him to an inn, gave the innkeeper some money and said, give this to him, take care of him. And of course, that turned out to be the hated Samaritans. And of course, when the lawyer who was questioning Jesus, at the end of this, I'm sort of trying to paraphrase, actually, but Jesus then asked the lawyer, who do you think is your neighbor? Because he had asked him, who is your neighbor? And of course, Jesus. And the lawyer answered, the one who showed mercy. You know, I can't get away from that. I can't get away from Jesus telling, okay, is that our call? Okay. 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 And then, of course, the least of these, where, I mean, that's coming from the mouth. Yes.
Well, as long as Carl Dean doesn't call in.
We're waiting for a phone call. That's why I'm stumbling around here. Okay. But the way, when I was in my office that you all graciously sent me to as circuit court clerk for 24 years, I soon learned there were all sorts of rules and laws to follow, but the ultimate one to follow when I had a question about anything was how Jesus would treat the people or the person that I was dealing with. And so do we have a call?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, we'll take it. Okay.
Good morning. You're on air.
Yes. The lady was just talking about Bible school, so I've got a quick question. She was talking about affordable health care and Bible school and all that. So do y'all believe in God?
We do, and you have, I believe every person is entitled to their own opinions, their own beliefs. I won't argue with you at all about what you believe, but what I'm asking for is that we go vote for people who have our actual concerns at heart. But whatever you're going to say,
who actually believe in God, and they know that if you believe in God, you cannot believe in abortion, because abortion would be saying God made a mistake. God has never made a mistake. He never will make a mistake. It's written in the book.
Okay, well,
so if you want to help America out, Franklin County, please get out there and vote red. Vote as red as you can to save our guns, to save children's lives that are murdered day in and day out by the Democratic Party.
I do not believe in it.
Please remember,
will you let me say something?
You want to save America.
There's not a person in this room who is for abortion.
And
pro-choice. You're pro-choice, right? You said everybody's opinion.
And let me tell you, this is a Republican law. The Republican Supreme Court voted Roe versus Wade in 1973.
On a lie. Will you agree? The lady come out later on and said that she lied.
Well, nevertheless,
the party's based on
well,
lying.
why does the Republican Party not change it?
Oh, don't worry, it's fixing to happen. That's why y'all didn't want Kavanaugh in. Y'all didn't want Justice Kavanaugh in because y'all are scared to death that we're finally going to stop the murder and abortion of innocent children in Franklin County and America, period.
Okay.
If God did not want the child to have life, he would not let it have conception. He would not have let the conception happen.
But you're pro-birth, not pro-life.
If God wants it to happen, it's going to happen. If you don't believe in that, then you don't believe in God.
Turn him off. Thanks for the call.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Vote red.
Okay, I would like to have said more, but
well, I stay with going back to how Jesus treated all people, and you can't go wrong if you'll just go through, and no matter what you think they've done or what you think is right or what you think is wrong. I rely on the teachings of Jesus, which I can't recall in any of his teachings, his parables, or his conduct doing anything to anyone. He even the woman that was thrown down in front of him, who was charged with committing adultery, and of course they stoned him, big old stones, not little bitty pebbles, but they killed him. And of course, when Jesus asked, "Who among you is without sin and will cast the first stone?" and they turned away. And I think that says to us, you can't handle this. This is for me to decide. And so many things that we don't understand, that we may not agree with, out there somewhere it'll be explained to us. But it's just, his mind is so much bigger than ours. In fact, there's no comparison. And I have always been a Democrat. I spent 24 years as your public service, which I appreciate very much. There were lots of things that came up that would bother me, that I had to deal with, that I would wonder what to do with. And I've decided just to follow the little badge that they gave the kids a long time ago, WWJD, what would Jesus do? We have to follow the laws. If you're a public official, if you're in a job, you got to follow the law. But you can treat people personally as Jesus would have, to the best of your ability.
And so you pray a lot.
And so you pray a lot, yes.
But this is, the Medicaid thing is one of the things that I just think is just horrible, that the Tennessee legislature did not accept Medicaid. What about older people? Do we not care about older people, about their health care and keeping them alive? $1.4 billion of our tax money, it's ours, has gone to 32 other states to help them, but not us. And I will never understand why we are losing $1.4 billion a year to other states that is ours to claim, and they didn't claim it. And no telling, I'd be interested to know how many people have died because they did not have that.
Hundreds of thousands. And Betty referred me to an article, Tennessean article, last night that I looked up. I hadn't noticed it, but it's in the Tennessean on the 23rd. It's in there about the positions that Carl Dean and Bill Lee are taking with regard to the expansion of Medicaid. Okay, we have a call. Okay, and in that article, they quote Chris Coleman. 5 years ago, in 2013, when they started talking about the Affordable Care Act that would become effective January of 2014, I started trying to learn about the Affordable Care Act because I knew it would be complicated. Insurance is complicated. So my first training session I went to was taught by Chris Coleman with Tennessee Justice Center, who's quoted in this article. Look up your October 23rd Tennessean and you'll see it, Dean and Lee, opposite in Visions for Health Care. Chris Coleman, I've been dealing off and on and admiring him for 5 years because he is the consummate expert on Medicaid. They quote him in here as saying, any health care plan for Tennessee, where's another page, that does not include Medicaid expansion is not a serious plan. Coleman said, it's the single greatest step, at no cost to the state, that we could take to provide coverage for hundreds of thousands of Tennesseans. And there is no way to fix the health care system until we fix the underlying problem of people who can't afford health insurance. And there are many of them out there. Although, of course, Bill Lee, I understand it, and Betty has said, we understand he's a fine man. He, to our knowledge, has no experience in being our governor. Carl Dean has been...
I also think that Bill Lee thinks he can help us.
Right, yes.
I think he's honest in telling us that
we don't want to put him
what
down
he's going to do for us.
All right, another person wants to talk to you for Betty.
Okay. Hello. You're on the air.
Hey, Betty.
Hey.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to call and tell you guys I appreciate y'all being on air and everything that you do, and you guys are our voices, and but I just love you guys. If you're going to have an outrageous person on the phone, you don't have to listen to it. You can just hang up. Everyone's going to have their own beliefs, and, of course, you're there on a talk show, so you're going to have to listen to it. But you don't have to take the animosity that comes with it.
Why are they so angry?
I don't know. And by listening to it, I don't know. I don't know if you're some godly person, I don't think that you would have anger in your voice by just calling and talking to whatever party is on the air.
I sure appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
I needed that today.
I've known you guys my whole life, and, you know, Miss George, and love everything he did for us and for Franklin County. And, you know, you're not there because you're not have anything else to do. You could be on a cruise, Betty, there to try and be a voice and let people speak and talk. But if, you know, they're going to have all the anger in their tones.
I just got back from
Take another call. Just take another call.
I just got back from Key West, and it was 100. It was 83 there and 32 when I got home, and my heating unit is out. So I do have something else to do. I have no heat.
Oh, wow. Well, you let me know if you need anything, and I can send someone over there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I love you, too. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So there are those kind of people out there who do appreciate it.
Who do appreciate it, yes. Well, I was about to say, with regard to Carl Dean, who is supposed to be calling in a few minutes, he is a former mayor of Nashville, took the city through the period when they had the Great Flood and the Great Depression. He was governor when they went through that. He got them through that. He, before that, was an elected state office, a public defender for his district. It would have been there in the Nashville area. And, of course, that's a highly responsible and...
so he knows about the downtrodden.
He knows about the downtrodden. That's a state position. He knows how to deal with the state. And
I know about the have-nots. And, it bothers me that the haves don't have no concern for the have-nots.
Some of them,
in so many cases, and that bothers me so much.
Betty and I, it was an eye-opener, actually, to me. I had been a court clerk for 24 years, but yet it was an eye-opener to me. And Betty worked for Christine Hopkins 7 years.
Yeah.
When I went to work for Christine Hopkins in the jail outreach, it's not outreach, I can't come up with a word. Anyway,
Reentry program.
Reentry, yeah. Anyway, I went to work right after I retired from the clerk's office with Christine, going into the jail, talking with people, real people, hearing their problems, knowing why they were there, knowing that they really, I don't think I talked to one bit that said, oh, I'm happy here in jail, I just want to stay here. They all wanted to be productive and get out, but there were certain problems they would have. Many of them
Just made bad choices.
But health. I think Sheriff Tim Fuller said one time at least half of those had mental issues or addiction issues. And of course, when they come out of jail, if they can't get help for those situations, they're going to be likely to be right back there.
That's right.
And it just really touched me like nothing else had, and why anyone could not be for a health program to help those people. And of course, over the years, it's gotten into the opioid thing. That's grown by leaps and bounds. And so they need, when they come out of that jail, they need access to insurance, and most of them don't have it. And how anyone, and as Betty pointed out in the article, the October 23rd article, billions of dollars Tennessee has lost, our tax money that we've paid that has gone to other states, and it's political. You know, it's political. But how people could adopt an, quote, ideology or a political stand over people actually suffering and dying is beyond my comprehension.
And the last account I had, we've lost 12 rural hospitals because we did not accept Medicaid. I think that's just ludicrous. And that is hard to understand, because that affects not just poor people, but everybody that lives in those communities. So I'm real interested in, that's one of Carl Dean's, that's part of his platform, is the Medicaid expansion. And of course, I certainly am not for issuing vouchers in education.
Right.
And he is certainly against that. That takes money from the public school system. And where would we be without public schools? I'm not against private schools at all, but where would we be without the public school? Where would I be without the public school? There's no way I could have gone to a private school.
And for people that can afford the private schools, for parents that can afford private schools, for those who have worked at a job where they had insurance for years and they have insurance, I'm glad for them. But for goodness sakes, realize that there are people out there that were not as fortunate as you. I just feel like it's our duty to just follow the teachings of Jesus. And I'll say again, on your ballot, it's easy. Go in there and punch that button that for the second name all the way down. Mariah Phillips, United States House of Representatives. She's running, her opponent would be Representative Scott Desjardins. She, again, is a teacher. Our children are our most precious. I don't want to call them possession, but she is a teacher, a mom, a mother of 5 children, and as I said, she has just worked and gone and done all she could. We need her in Congress. We need Sharon Adams. Sharon's from Marion County. Another family from a family of school teachers. It's if you're a middle class and lower person, you need to vote for these people. Don't pay attention. I mean, it's just the abortion thing. The Roe versus Wade case was decided in 1973. It was later on, years later on, that somehow our friends on the Republican, not ordinary Republicans, but somebody higher up decided they needed to have an issue where they could demagogue the Democrats, and someone suggested, what about abortion? And they went with it, and they're still going with it. And sadly, they can believe what they want to. Everybody's entitled to their beliefs and their opinion. But to blame abortion, when I don't know, Betty, I haven't met anybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever, that says I am for abortion. That is something.
Neither have I. They act like we think it's compulsory. You know, it's a tragic thing. It shouldn't be decided in the courts. I certainly am not for abortion.
Well, and I'll point
like
out,
I said, I don't know anybody who is.
I'll point out there was a recent article in the newspaper about Sandra Day O'Connor, who's the first Supreme Court Justice appointed, Republican, appointed by President Ronald Reagan. When President Reagan, I read a book about her, so I admire her very much. She got 2 grown children now, they're sons, but she had been a state judge. She had lots of experience as a lawyer and as a judge. And when she was asked by President Reagan, what's your feeling on abortion, she said, I find it repugnant. And I think just about every one of us would say, as Betty said, it's tragic. Who wants to think a woman or a girl is in a situation that you have to deal with that, or a family? Sandra Day O'Connor told Ronald Reagan, said, I think it's repugnant. Later on, there was a case, I think the case's name, the first name was Casey. She cast the deciding vote, I think, for upholding Roe versus Wade. Of course, cases have come along during the years that have attacked Roe v. Wade, but she voted to uphold. And why? You have to consider all the facts and circumstances and the law and the rights of everybody concerned, not just zero in on one. When I was in the court system, and Al, you were down there in jail, you couldn't just zero in.
Oh, you in jail, Al?
Al worked for the sheriff for years, but you can't take, if you're going to be a real loving, caring human being, you can't really take one side and say the heck with everybody else, they're murderers, you'll treat all within the law and within common sense, try to treat everybody right. And Sandra Day O'Connor voted for that, although she found, just like we're saying, we find abortion repugnant, tragic.
But who will it affect? The poor people.
Poor people.
A little rich girl who becomes pregnant and doesn't want the pregnancy can go anywhere and have it taken care of, but it'll affect the poor.
Right. And I have one time I answered somebody that said, what did I think about a certain restriction, a law to put a restriction to put on abortion? And I said, well, I don't like any law that affects only poor people. And basically, all these restrictions that they come up with, it's not out of sadly, compassion or concern. Well, we're talking about it. But you have the whole situation to deal with, and all of us need to find it in ourselves to have the concern and the love and to have the compassion for everybody involved, and not just a one-sided, I'm for or against. We're not for abortion.
It could have been changed long before now.
Right. And Barbara Bush, in fact, made the statement, I am not pro-abortion. I am pro-choice. And that's where we come from, the choice of everybody. That's why the courts have, it's a difficult, honestly, one time I decided I'm going to figure this thing out, just exactly what.
Maybe that's him.
That may be our call.
Go ahead.
No, okay. But anyway, at one point, I was used to down in the clerk's office, I had difficult things to figure out sometimes. Well, what does the law mean regarding this and that? And so I made my mind up a couple of years ago that I was going to figure out the abortion thing. Well, just what is exactly right, and what should we be doing? I went back and read the Supreme Court, the justices, what they'd written, and it's so complicated. We all just have to deal with it the best we can. And
is there a
that's
call?
What I'm doing.
We got a call.
Okay.
Hello, you're on the air.
Yes, I just want to comment on your question, your remarks right now, and say it's a matter of a woman's right to choose what is best for her. And a lot of times it's a health issue. with the doctors, so it should be between the doctors and the woman. And they have politicized this and politicized it till they've taken the human out of it and just made it a political issue. So I don't even think we should address these comments to people like the man that called in, because he's never been pregnant. He's never had a
I bet he hasn't either.
Probably.
We can agree on
I mean,
that.
before it was born, something that was wrong with it, and it needed to, the fetus needed to be aborted. It's health issues. It's not political issues. And we need to separate all this mess out of our political landscape and just quit remarking on it. Just say we're not even going to address that issue because it's been settled in the Supreme Court. It's settled law. And why we have to beat this over the head every election is beyond me. I mean, I'm a Democrat. And I know there's a lot of Republican women that are for the right to choose. So we should just quit giving time to these demagogues that just take this issue and run with it and try to get people, to vote for the other side because of abortion. Just say we're not going to talk about this anymore. It's settled law. Y'all are doing a great job. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I believe Carl Dean has forgotten us, Nancy.
Well, we've talked about him. Let's see. He also we'll talk about. We've mentioned his health care. He is really strong on expanded Medicaid.
And I would be for him if that was all he was for.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's that important that we take care of our old people, and this also affects children. A lot of children are on Medicaid. I just, for the life of me, cannot understand why.
Well, and when you think of children not having insurance, and if their parents don't have insurance, in Tennessee, any child with in a low-income family, under 19, I believe, should have insurance. Some of them just don't have the ability. You can't go now, thanks to what the state of Tennessee did in 2013 before the Affordable Care Act came along. You can't go down to your health department, not health department, but Human Services, and sit down there and have somebody help you fill out a form. You got to find out how to do it yourself, and I think that is so tragic. And they haven't changed that. And it's not only those children, but honestly, when I think of, quote, the caravan, the migrants headed our way, I see again that poster on the wall of the beaten up, bloody man alongside the road that Jesus himself, out of his own mouth, told the parable. And when he was asked, "Who is your neighbor?" He told that parable, and so I'm going to stay with that until somebody convinces me that I shouldn't care about other people, regardless of their color of their skin, regardless of their sexual preferences, regardless. I don't recall again being taught in church or going to what Jesus said. Jesus making any distinction in the least of these. With regard to the least of these, he made no distinction as to the people that now get caught up in political ideology, and so I just, again, go to the polls. When you go in, vote with a second name on the ballot all the way down. Phil Bredesen, Carl Dean, Mariah Phillips, Sharon.
Carl, you need to die.
So, do you think that with looking at early voting numbers and things, you think it's going to be a huge turnout at the polls this time?
Probably. Looks like it.
I think there's over 4,000 have voted already in Franklin County.
And over the country, there are other in other areas the turnout is much higher than usual.
He's gonna call.
Okay.
So busy. I guess a lot of people get it because you can early vote through the 1st of November, which is a week from 2 weeks from today, or 1
and
week?
Thank you. Let me mention something right quick. To those who can vote absentee, you've got until October the 30th to mail in a request to vote absentee, and that covers a bunch of people. I hope it's on the papers I've got here. Over 60, disabled.
Sure.
You need to go online and find, or get something from the registrar's office and find out if you're...
Hi, this is Carl Dean.
Hey, Carl.
Hey.
So glad you made it. We thought you'd forgotten us.
I was calling the wrong number.
That's okay. We'd be interested to hear you ask the Franklin County people to vote for you and say whatever you'd like to say. Of course, the thing that I'm so interested in that you are for is Medicaid expansion. So say anything you'd like to say to the people of Franklin County.
Okay, will do.
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah,
Hi,
you're on there.
Carl Dean, and I'm wanted to tell you why I'm running for governor. And one of the big issues that I'm talking about that I think is real important for our state is getting Medicaid expansion done. You know, the legislature didn't consider this several years ago when Governor Haslam proposed it, and that has hurt our state. The fact of the matter is that every day we're turning away millions of dollars that we could be using to give access to health care to Tennesseans. You know, we're sending our money to D.C., but it's not coming back here. It's going to 34 other states that have done Medicaid expansion. And, you know, there are over 300,000 people who would receive access to health care, people who with disabilities, people with pre-existing conditions, and people with who are working but just can't afford insurance. Now, one of the things that has resulted from this lack of Medicaid expansion has been that hospitals are not getting the reimbursement they need to be financially successful. And that has particularly impacted rural Tennessee, where you've seen hospitals close. I mean, rural medicine has a variety of challenges, but the failure to do Medicaid expansion has really hurt rural Tennessee. And I want to change that. And I want to see that people of Tennessee have access to health care. I also want to make sure that we're working hard on public education, which means that we need to be supporting vocational programs in addition to having more kids, young people go to college. My opponent is for school vouchers. I'm opposed to that. I believe we ought to be paying our teachers more and making sure that we're giving quality education to people all around the state. And I'd like to help rural Tennessee's economy get stronger. I think one of the critical things that we need to do is to get rural broadband done. You know, I always think about President Kennedy saying in the early 60s that we'll go to the moon by the end of the decade. We did. And I think in Tennessee we can say in a matter of years, we can get together and give universal access to broadband, and that will move rural Tennessee forward more than anything I can think of. I'm asking for your vote. I think I have the experience as the mayor of Nashville and spending 8 years running a large city with a $2 billion budget and thousands of employees and very complicated government. And I'm anxious to serve the people of Tennessee in the capacity of governor.
And that is so good. And what about poor retired teachers? I sure would like to have a raise.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to take care of our retired teachers too. You know, educators are the key.
Sure enough, think of retired teachers who worked for. When I first started teaching, my salary was $225 a month. So therefore, you know, I didn't have a huge salary. I was always a classroom teacher. I didn't work at the board and draw a big salary. But sure enough, our increase, we have not had an increase, and I can't tell you how long. But I want to applaud you on the Medicaid issue. I want to applaud you on your public education stand, and the fact that you are not for vouchers, because that's so detrimental to public education. Anything else that you'd like to cover?
No, I think that's it. I just love the state, and I look forward to working with people. I mean, I do think that, I bring to the table the fact that I served as governor. It was a nonpartisan position. I had to get all parties to support me and work with people from both parties. I like working with people and like working out problems and moving things forward, and I want to do that for Tennessee.
You had so many obstacles, I know, when you were mayor of Nashville.
Well, we had some tough times. We had the recession and we had the flood. But then, my second term, the city just took off and we had the boom that continues to this day. So I've had an interesting time in government. I've had a lot of experience.
I know you have. We have some more time. You can take as much time as you'd like to say anything else you'd like to about your election and about your campaign.
Well, I think, one of the things I really am trying to emphasize is, are these issues of health care, education, and economic opportunity. And I think that message resonates in all parts of the state, in both rural areas and urban areas. And I think in particular, rural Tennessee has challenges because you have parts of rural Tennessee are actually losing population. In West Tennessee, there are 15 counties losing population. And that means that your tax base is eroding. That means that it makes it more difficult to fund education, makes it more difficult to fund public safety. And those problems just kind of build on themselves. So I think it's really important that we work hard to bring better paying jobs and try to re-energize the economies of rural Tennessee so that they can take care of those issues. And I'm really anxious to work on that. I think that's real important.
Hey, what do you think we need to do to increase our productivity in the state of Tennessee? We've been growing very rapidly, but, I guess we're somewhat organized, but some of the smaller areas are struggling to get some really good industries and some really good businesses in their area. How do you feel about industrial growth?
Well, I think it's important that we do that, and I think one of the things that a governor can do through working with the Economic Development Department is to target and put an emphasis on economic development in areas that need more attention, and I think those are largely the smaller towns and more rural parts of the state. And so I think one of my goals would be to work hard to bring in good, better-paying jobs and good jobs to those areas. That's not easy, but I think we can do it. And that's related to education, too. I mean, if you're going to attract good jobs, you got to have good education. And if you're going to attract good jobs, you got to have access to health care. So the hospital issue is important. I mean, I think working on all of those things at the same time is just vital. It's schools, it's jobs, and it's health care.
And I know I mentioned to you when we talked when you came to Franklin County, I mentioned to you not giving raises across the board, like you don't give a 4% raise across the board to teachers because of the difference in the salaries. I want you to give a 4%. I want you to give 4% to everybody and divide it equally. I don't want those who are making $110,000 to get a 4% raise, and those who are making $30,000 to get a 4% raise.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things we have to do, I think, is to make sure that when the legislature thinks they're voting on salary increases for teachers, that those salary increases actually get to the teachers.
I do
think
too.
What happens a lot, they end up, they think they're giving them a 2 or 4% increase, and they don't end up getting much of anything.
That's right, and that's the way it's always been. I sure would be interested in that changing.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm sorry we messed up on the number to call. I thought that I had left that, but maybe anyway it was a breakdown, but that's okay. And I'm so glad that we're just honored to have been able to talk to you that long. And thank you so much.
You. Thank you. One thing, could I add one quick thing? I was talking about absentee voting. I don't have the list. There's many people that if you're unable to go to the polls and vote, by October the 30th, you can send in a request to Margaret Otley's office. Her phone number is 967-1893. 967-1893. If you're not able to go vote in person for any reason, call that number. That's the election office, and tell them why you're not able to go vote, and you might fall into a category that you can vote absentee by mail, but you got to do that by October 30th. So be sure to do that.
Be sure you vote. People, it is so important that you vote. Be sure and go vote. This is Common Sense Matters.
You are listening to WCDT, AM 1340, W295 AV FM 106.9 in Winchester, Tennessee.